Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tailgating with the Tullys. I'm CJ, and I'm here to discuss part one of All Star Weekend. Today I'll be hitting on the saloon style slugfest that we saw this weekend down in Texas. Let's get into it. Alright, so All Star Weekend started with one thing that most people tune in for, the Home Run Derby. The rounds this year were a little bit different with the rules, which are a little controversial in my opinion, but we'll get to that. So the rules for round one started with a 2-minute time period or 40 pitches, whichever was reached first. The first batter to go was Alec Bohm, as he was the lowest seed getting into this. Now, Alec Bohm had 11 home runs coming into this. That's another thing I think is controversial that I'll get into, but players like this don't bring the same excitement necessarily as the stars in the league. But Bohm set the pace strongly with 21 home runs, and that set the pace leading up to these other stars, as Jose Ramirez had 21. Bobby Witt surprised me with 20, as he's not much of a power guy in my opinion, but we like the speed there. And Teoscar Hernandez had 19, which he was on a run of multiple home runs a game for a bit. The disappointments in this derby came with Adolis Garcia, Marcell Ozuna, Pete Alonso, and my guy who we'll get to at the end. Adolis pretty much just in it as the Ranger representative. Hasn't really had a great season whatsoever on my fantasy team. Kind of a bum, rides the bench at this point. But somebody who you could see turn it around at the second half, and I was hoping that maybe the derby was a spark of that. He finished with only 18. Marcell Ozuna was leading the NL in home runs for a while now. Shohei's kind of withstanded that and took him over at this point. But Ozuna hit 16. Back-to-back champ Pete Alonso, who I think is just too old to be in these kind of things at this point. Kind of just needs to hang it up that he's lost his spark ever since he knocked that kid out. I think it was 21. He finished with only 12. And my guy Gunnar, number one seed in the entire Derby, possible AL MVP, could not handle the bright lights after weeks of. He was the first one to announce he was going to be in it, but after weeks of the media just all over him, I mean, Orioles social media is all over him, but that's understandable. But Ro Raggy, he finished with only 11 home runs in the Derby. Round two continued with Hernandez, Bohm, Witt, and Ramirez. Witt and Ramirez's round didn't really bring much of anything. Witt was able to withstand him by 5 home runs and make it to the finals. Teoscar and Bohm had a bit of a back-to-back. Bohm sat out for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours almost, I guess, as he was the first to hit. So when he came into the round, he hit 15. Teoscar had 16, but Bohm had to hit 1 home run in his final 3 swings, and he would have just made it. Ended up going to a swing-off where Teoscar hit 2 home runs in the swing-off. Bohm could only hit 1. It was exciting for a Philly who probably only made it because he was a Philly. And Harper and Schwarber were hurt at the time, but it was good to see Bohm in there. As you know, I'm not a big fan. I know Ryan's not a big fan as well. But it was good to see a Philly in there and actually be able to represent himself well. So coming down to the final, they had 3 minutes to perform. Hernandez set the pace with 14, and Witt followed up with 13. Almost had his 14th on his last swing. Just bounced off the back of the wall, couldn't get out. But it was great to see Witt honestly make it that far. I'd chosen him in a pool. Was not expecting much. I thought he would honestly finish last in this entire thing. And Hernandez, as a Dodger, I mean, I always thought that he was somebody who on any other lineup could be hitting higher up. With being on the Dodgers, I believe he's like a 6-7 hitter. So good for him to do that. He, as I said, he was on a stretch of a lot of great games. So how can we fix the Derby? As we said earlier in this, Gunnar was the 1 seed. So he belonged in this as he was leading the league in home runs at one point. But 11 home runs. And then you have someone like Bohm come in. Isn't great. Bobby not hitting many home runs. But these players were selected into this. Garcia, again, like I said, wasn't having a great year. So how can we fix this? So my proposal would be less participants. As we saw, that was 8. Maybe narrow it down to just 6 of the greatest hitters right now in the league. And I think another thing that we could do is go back to the old rules. I miss the outs when it would just be 10 outs and you weren't timed and you weren't rushing. I've seen a lot of things about maybe the pitchers were even feeling rushed as it was timed, so they kind of just had to pump pitches out. They weren't able to really set and give good pitches, so hitters were just swinging at anything. So I think things like that could be a big factor in why we're seeing less home runs even. I know there was years where Vlad was hitting like 40, and now we're seeing the max was 21 by Bohm and Ramirez. So things like that I think could really make a difference in the league. I think another thing is better competition. Again, Bohm, Witt, Garcia, old Pete Alonso, Ozuna could have been something, but we need players like Shohei, Judge, Santander's doing great this year in home runs. Devers, Juan Soto would be exciting. Players like this who, bigger names, I guess you could say, or players who just deserve to be in the Derby. I know a lot of them want to take the time off and don't. It's kind of like the dunk contest, you know, you don't see the best dunkers or the best basketball players in it. It's kind of just players looking to make a name or just make a statement. As the big name players uses his time off, but I think if you saw Derby with Judge, Otani, Henderson, Santander, Devers, Soto, you know, Harper would have been great. Players like this would have made a big difference in a contest like this, and I think it could have just brought more limelight to it. So overall, I think it was a great showing. I think it does draw out lengthwise. You kind of get bored by the final, just with all the downtime between. I think they could definitely wrap that up, and I think to make it more fun, I do think you could go back to the outs as opposed to the time. This will give pitchers more time to set, as well as more just excitement overall, as players aren't rushed, and it doesn't draw out necessarily. The 10 outs don't have to be within the 3 minutes, so it technically could be quicker. Overall, it was a great showing, and as part one of our All-Star breakdown, that was the Home Run Derby. Thank you guys for listening, and we look forward to making more episodes like this. Thank you.